Okay, so yes, hi everyone again. My second talk at the TUG meeting. Don't ever do the same mistake that I made, which is to make two proposals, asking the organizer to choose, and they don't choose. They just tell you, well, present both. So here I am again. Tough act to present this afternoon after the quite technical talks that we had this morning, and knowing that also that what I will present is actually another package, so I'm not sure whether I'm in the 80% or the 20% that Tom talked about. Basically I designed a new journal class for a journal that I'll just mention in a minute. This is snowy owl. That's the avian symbol of the province of Quebec in Canada. And it also appears on the coat of arms of the Statistical Society of Canada. And just bear that in mind for a few seconds, because it will happen again in a minute. Actually, okay. I'm certainly not the first one to make that joke, to start a late tech talk with this first section being labeled preamble. Anyway, so yes, I designed the journal, the document class for the Canadian Journal of Statistics, which is the official journal of the Statistical Society of Canada, whose logo is this, and if you look carefully at the logo, you will see a snowy owl in flight, actually. If you look carefully, this is the head of the owl, the wings, okay? And pay attention to the colors also. As a true Canadian society, the journal is bilingual. And probably as a true bilingual society, no articles ever has appeared in French. No, I'm just kidding. There were a few articles in French, but there are very, very few of them. But we have to be bilingual, nevertheless. Probably only the Belgian people truly understand what I just talked about here. Okay, so the context is the following, is that the LaTeX class that they were using for the journal was very, very, very old. Actually, I'm not 100% sure that this date here that is written in the document class was updated or not over time, but the class, the file, includes this date, so from 1994. Obviously, this caused a number of compilation errors when people were submitting their articles. So that's where the need for a new class seemed to have arisen. Obviously, the tech world evolved quite a lot since 1994. We went from LaTeX to PDF LaTeX and to the newer engines or formats. I use these slides in part to make a presentation at the the Statistical Society of Canada meeting, where the distinction between an engine and a class was not important. So bear with me on that, okay? If I don't make the distinction here between the two. So now we have these new engines that in one of their important aspect is the fact that they support open type fonts. In 1994, we're still pretty much using Computer Modern. The PostScript fonts were available, but I mean, there's no comparison with the choice of fonts that we have nowadays. And one other important aspect is that we moved from mostly printed documents to electronic documents, or digital documents if you prefer. And this entails a lot of differences, if only the support for hyperlinks and colors. That's something that was not taken into account with the former class. So it seems, oh yeah, okay. About a year after I was contacted to create the new document class, The package CJS RCS article was first released on CRAN, so in November last year, and I just published an update last week. So it took about a year for the whole thing to be done, and you did not hear me say that the fact that there was a faculty strike at Laval, at my university, last spring helped in any way. Well, not last spring, but the spring of 2020, well, no, 2023, yeah. So, yeah, the package contains the document class, bibliographic styles, that's something that wasn't planned at the beginning, and complete documentation in both English and French, and some article templates. The journal is printed by Wiley, so pretty early on when I was contacted, I asked them, well, why don't you just use the Wiley templates? I mean, Wiley, they offer free templates, you just have to put in the name of the journal and that's about it. And the editor told me that that's not the way they wanted to, the route that they wanted to go. One thing is that they wanted to have a distinctive and a unique look for their journal instead of just using a standard template provided by the editor. And they wanted also to remain or retain a certain independence from the large publishers. So if for some reason, for example, they want to switch publisher, well, they don't want to have to redo everything from scratch. And I think, honestly, that's something that probably appeared along the way, that they wanted to build something with and for the community also. I'm probably much more accessible also than a person responsible for the layout at Wiley. Okay, so... why? Well, that's a question for you. Why you or why me, if you prefer? Well, first you should probably ask the editor of the journal, who happens, fun fact, to be Czech, and who happens to be in Prague right now because she's on sabbatical. End of the fun fact. So you should probably ask Joanna why she asked me. To this day, I don't really exactly know why she contacted me. Maybe it was because I've been the maintainer of the thesis class for my university since 2012, and I think I've been pretty successful with this document class because I receive very, very, very few questions. Probably less than 5 per year overall. I don't know the number of theses that are published with LaTeX, but certainly more than 5 every year. And I maintain a few other packages also. One thing I told Joanna right at the beginning is why don't you contact one of the freelancers that do this type of work? I mean, it's published at the end of every Tugboat issue. I even gave her a couple of names. I think I was just cheaper also than all of you. Okay, so to understand this joke, maybe you have to be from North America to know what a Sears is. And you certainly have to be over 50 to know what a blue light Kmart special is. And you will notice also that the two people who talked about literate programming at this conference had a Calvin and Hobbes joke also, since there was one by Mitchell also yesterday. Okay, so I'm not a designer, of course. I'm just a university professor, but I do care about good design. I mean, I can see and appreciate good design when I see it, or bad design when I see it, and quite honestly, we much more often see bad design than good design, isn't it? And I'm pretty good at replicating stuff. So I'm not very good at inventing new stuff, since I'm not a designer by trade, but I'm pretty good at seeing something that I like and doing it again, or just replicating it. And actually, the design that I will show you in a minute is mostly replicated from the actual newspaper that I'm reading. Okay, I just took the ideas here and there and just replicated the design. Some constraints that I've worked with, those that were imposed by the journal, was to have a LaTeX class, and that's what was important for them, that the authors can use and produce a copy of their article as close as possible to the copy that will be printed by the publisher. Okay, so that the page breaks don't change and the general layout will be pretty much the same. They needed some special commands for some mathematical operators that are common in statistics, that nothing special there. And they wanted a French version. That's what they told me. We want a French version without ever saying what it meant. I think the former class pretended to include a French version, but there was probably nothing that was really made there on the French front. So what I imposed to myself, by myself, is that right from the outset I said, well, this new class that we'll design should be free software. It should be published on CTAN and made available to everyone. This was accepted immediately. What I imposed to myself, meaning not from the CJS, but from myself, first I wanted a class that had one and only one prerequisite for users to use the class, is to have an up-to-date and modern text distribution. Meaning if you have a reasonably recent version of TechLive, meaning not necessarily the latest one, but not necessarily the one that was current when you bought your computer, because that's what happens a lot. People don't update their text distributions. And they don't even know how to update it sometimes because, well, it was installed on my computer by the IT people and I never touched it again. So so I wanted just a reasonably up-to-date text distribution. I wanted something that would be truly bilingual in the sense that everything would be, well, the documentation would be bilingual, but also the layout would be adapted. So if you write your article in French, the typesetting will be also done in French, the typography. I wanted to have distinctive and high-quality fonts. Many are available today. And to use these newer high-quality fonts, I wanted to use open type fonts, so it had to be compatible with XLaTeX, but it also had to remain compatible with PDF LaTeX, which is the engine that most people use. And eventually, I designed bibliographic styles along the way. Okay, so I'm a little bit behind schedule. I had a lot of stuff. So let's have a look a little bit at what I've done. So this was the old class of the journal. And fairly standard journal class by all standards. I mean, pretty crowded top titling material. Okay, so you have the title, and always this idea of putting a lot of superscripts for the affiliations, the thanks, the everything, and so very, very crowded. Two abstracts, we have two abstracts, always an English and a French version, put underneath each other. Some information about the number of the journal, so the issue and so on, that seems to be a little bit put there at the top without too much thought, and obviously the license that was probably seems to be written there after a while, and otherwise, I mean, it's fairly standard for 1994 format. The text is in Times Roman. The titles are in Helvetica. So this is what I came up with as a design, so it's exactly the same article. It's a little bit inspired, to be very honest, also by some elements of the Wiley templates. And, for example, I know the lines are long or the margins are narrow, but that's pretty much the style they use in scientific journals nowadays. So that I followed. I think the upper part of the title page where we have the authors is just clearer. No superscripts at all other than the orchid symbol, because the affiliation is just written immediately underneath each and every name, even if it means that some affiliations are repeated. I mean, it doesn't matter, okay? You can see that the name of the journal and everything, the publication information is a little bit better, goes better with the rest of the design. And you see the three colors in the logo that are reused there. So yeah, that's pretty much the general layout. So for the text of the main font for text, I used Textsl, which is a fairly new or recent font, and personally that I find really, really gorgeous. I mean, the first version of Stix was essentially a copy of Times Roman, which didn't make it that interesting in my view. The new version of Stix2 just moves a little bit away from Times Roman in a way that I think it makes for a really, really quite beautiful font, and excellent support for mathematics. Because as many of you will know, when you look for a font to use, but that has to have a very good support for mathematics, the intersection is very, 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 very small. So there aren't that many fonts. I have a license for the Lucida fonts for something like at least 12 years or so. It's a font that I like very much, but that's not free and available to all systems. So it wouldn't work because of my first prerequisite, okay? For the headings and the computer code, I used Fira. That's another font that I use a lot. That goes surprisingly very, very well with Lucida and works very, very well also with Stix2. Well, at least in my opinion. There are some options for the document class. So an option review will increase the line spacing, will number the lines, will remove the name of the authors, stuff like that, pretty standard. So it's very simple for the authors to just write the option review and I'll have a copy that is ready to send to the reviewers. We have another option that's called final that will typeset the license statement at the bottom of the journal of the first page. And this will be made by the editors. What is the license that is used, and the correct space will be made there. It also makes a few checks for the editors that doesn't show on the printed page. Like, for example, complaining that you did not enter a volume and a number for the issue. There's an option supplement. This one's interesting because quite often the journal offers the authors the possibility to publish supplementary material to go with their paper, and instead of writing it in some other class or some other format, they wanted the authors to be able to use the same document class. And now they just have to add the supplement option to the document class, and you see that there's an additional line that is written on top of the title, and some other material from the titling page just gets removed. And there's an option, no CJS, so that anyone can use the class to typeset documents without any link to, if you like the class, well, you can use it without pretending that it's a Canadian Journal of Statistics article. Actually, the documentation of the class is written using that option. I won't have a lot of time to talk about the technical aspects of the class, which is a shame. But let's just have a look at a few things for the few remaining minutes. So for me, it was important. I think it's important when you design a piece of software that the interface that the users will use will be as simple, as intuitive as possible. So I paid a lot of attention to the interface that the users will use, would see when they will be writing an article for the journal. So just a few elements. Okay, just an element of technical detail. The class is based on memoir. I don't know if this is a sensitive subject in these circles. I don't know. Why using memoir? Well, because I've been using it since 2005 for all my documents. So this is the actual. This is actually the document class that I'm most comfortable with. And it has a very, very good documentation also. So that's something I enjoy using. And it's very, very simple in memoir, I think, to change the page layout, line spacing. It has built-in support, similar to book tabs, for tables and all sorts of different things that I used to design my class. The cons to using this class is first, memoir assumes that you're writing a book, and that will start with a chapter level. So you have to disable chapters if you're basically mimicking an article class. And I had some trouble with the interaction with the doc when I was writing the documentation. I don't think I'll have time to go over this, but it's just that I had to disable a few things from memoir to be able to use the features of doc to write the documentation. That's probably one of the most interesting aspects, the way, and probably one of the most complicated things in journal classes is how do you specify authors and their affiliation. There are all sorts of models. They're all different, okay? Every journal class has its own way of doing things. And the one I decided to use was in part inspired by AuthBlock. I absolutely don't remember how I came up to know about this package, but I found the idea quite interesting. The idea being that you essentially have a sequence of author and affiliations commands to enter, well, the name of an author and its affiliation, his or her affiliation immediately after. So it makes for quite a simple interface. You just give your name, your affiliation, name, affiliation, name, affiliation, and these commands will build the author block, everything that will be published, that will be typeset at the beginning of the paper. To actually do this, I had, since the formatting of the authors and affiliations was hard-coded in the AuthBlock package, I had basically to rewrite it from scratch. But it was a fun thing to do. Since I'm really not an expand after guru, I had to rely a lot on the tools by eToolbox. So I was very happy to be able to use this package. One interesting thing here, and this is something that I took from an article that was published in Tugboat last year, is the way to collect metadata from the sources of a LaTeX document to be able to do eventually something with it that could be outside of the typesetting itself of the document. I don't use metadata at all, but the idea remained. For example, to give the surnames of the authors in a command surname, so that we could collect eventually the surnames of the authors. Here I don't collect the surnames per se, but I use this command to typeset the surnames in a certain way. So on the title page, the surnames are always in uppercase letters. So this way I don't rely on the authors typing their name in uppercase letter, I just do it myself. And also I can collect all the surnames and put them together in the header of every second page, something that is quite common in scientific journals. So yeah, that was something useful. And also, again, inspired by the article by Boss and McCurley, was the interface to enter some additional information regarding each author. So for example, the ORCID ID of an author, whether the email address of each and every author, and whether you're the corresponding author or not. You could tell for each author corresponding is equal to false, or as is quite common, you can just put for the corresponding author corresponding, and by default it is true and the others are false. Okay, so, yep, maybe I'll just say, okay, very, very quickly about abstracts. Two environments to enter your abstract, and the nice thing is, depending on the language of the article, the abstract will be positioned differently every time, with the abstract in the main language of the article on the left. That was, I think it was a nice touch to add. This I'll skip. Okay, and that is, I think it'll be the last element that I'll touch upon. The back matter information, that's something that is printed towards the end of the journal, okay? Just before the references, the list of references, and the appendix. So we have, for example, whether there's supplementary information, the data sharing statement, the acknowledgements, stuff like that, funding. This is all put at the end of the article automatically. Well, the authors are expected to enter this information not as sections. If we ask the authors to enter this information as sections in a template, they will probably eventually change the order of the sections, or they'll do something with this. So now I just, in the class, they just have to use specially defined environments for that. And we provide a command make back matter, just like make title, that will just all typeset this material in the correct order, in the correct format, and the ORCID information will be collected from the authors and published at the end of the paper automatically. Okay, so I think it's a much cleaner interface. So we basically rely as less as possible on the authors to actually typeset the material in the correct order. I'm pretty much done, so yeah. The only thing I will say here about bibliographic styles is that this is something that I added along the way. Instead of relying on existing styles, especially up-alike that is pretty old, I made other bibliographic styles from scratch using custom bib from Patrick Daly. Okay, this is old stuff, I realize, and it's not using BibLatex, I'm still using BibTeX, but there's such a huge installation base for BibTeX, and I think most authors still rely on these tools. So, yeah, that's about it. There is some more material in the slides if you want to have a look at this. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Vincent. Any questions that you have for Vincent?
I fully agree with your choice of not using Wiley's templates because they are written in a horrible way. But I think your class is written quite in a good way, but just looking at it, I found a missing percent at line 579. And a lot of excess percent signs at the end of some lines. By the way, Environ, the package Environ is not needed, is no longer needed. You can do it just with new document environment with the B argument type, which would require newer Tech Live releases, which could be good for your idea of making users update their distribution. But it has been available for a few years just now. But possibly something I looked at the class, possibly something I do slightly differently, but I think it's a very good attempt at writing a new class.
I concur. Any questions from the ether?
Well, this is not from ether, this is from me, if I'm allowed. When you switch to anonymous mode for peer review, you obviously need to do something with your back matter. You need to blank acknowledgements, funding, and so on, as the first question. And second question, now people, some journals start to go into the standard form for grants where you put ROR indexes and so on, so machines can extract this information. Do you plan to use special interface for standard format for grants?
That would be in the funding information. No, it's just free text for the authors to enter.
Yeah, and you blank out it.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The only thing we ask authors in using the review option, well, that's the part that we cannot do, is like, do not cite yourself, for example, all the time, and we can tell that who has written the article. But we hide everything that should be hidden that we can control. Yeah.
Would the party eventually be willing to switch over to Lua LaTeX, or will they stick to PDF LaTeX forever?
I think when I told the people about XLaTeX, it was something new for them. Okay, and so that's already one step. So there's something else than PDF LaTeX, and quite honestly, well, my main interest for XLaTeX was to be able to use open type fonts and Unicode, because that's something I didn't mention, but I force Unicode on people. They don't have the choice. They have to use Unicode encoding unless there are no accents in their documents, which shouldn't happen because they need to have a French abstract. And if they manage to write a French abstract without any accent or whatever, it's a feat. So as for Lua LaTeX, I honestly don't use it myself, so honestly I didn't put it in largely due to my own ignorance.
Yeah,
and I didn't know whether I would need it anywhere other than access to the open type fonts and Unicode.
Yeah, but I also saw that you looked at XMP metadata to looking for ways to implement it. Which ways were you,
I honestly didn't do anything about that. Okay, it's just that I wrote some commands that I said, well, okay, eventually if we want to extract some metadata, we'll have the information already written, but otherwise I didn't do anything about that.
Okay.
So I think, I haven't checked the time. I think we're ready for the next speaker. Vincent, thanks very much.